Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming your way with another market recap, this time for August 14th. We are on a Tuesday, and the bulls certainly were back here today. A lot of buying going on in the market. So if you were a bull, you probably don't mind the way the day played out. Home Depot did report their earnings. It seems like the market didn't really care. They did sell off a little bit, but nothing too dramatic. Home Depot doesn't tend to make huge moves, but they did sell a little bit. Not a lot on the way of earnings going into tomorrow. S&P 500 companies. You have Allegiant reporting tonight, and then Macy's tomorrow before the market opened. And for S&P, that is all we have for earnings going into tomorrow. We have retail sales tomorrow, and certainly something we wanted to keep an eye on. We talked late last week about that resistance that we were seeing on the retail ETF XRT, which you see here. We were able to push through that here today on a pretty strong bullish candle breaking through. Let's see how we respond to that report. Macy's, I'll show you this. I hate when this happens, but it happens and you got to deal with it. Macy's has been something I've been keeping a close eye on for a potential breakout as well. Their earnings being tomorrow, I don't like to hold a swing trade through earnings, so I was just kind of hoping they would wait. It doesn't look like they're going to do it. Another strong break here today. So I guess I'll have to see how their earnings play out, see if something develops. But one of my least favorite things, have a trade set up I really like and have it happen before earnings when, you know, I could hold it, but I don't like to. I think that's too much of a gamble for my taste. So such is life as a trader, right? But certainly keep an eye on that retail sales report. That can impact us, broadly speaking, in the retail sectors. A lot of retail stocks have some interesting trade setups like Macy's does here. So keep an eye on that tomorrow. Talking about our indexes, again, another pretty strong day in the market after a couple days of, very lackluster selling, not a lot of conviction, at least the last couple of days of selling. Buyers did step back in. Looks like we're getting ready to take another crack at that resistance level on the NASDAQ. So everything's looking good from a technical point of view over in the NASDAQ. No real different on the S&P 500. We're able to make that higher low, get a little bit of upward movement here today. Starting to look like we could take another run at that resistance too. It'll be interesting to see if we have more luck if we get to that point this time around. The Dow, who's not looked exactly like the S&P, and the Dow continues to hold support. We can kind of see that it tested that swing low yesterday. We did bounce off of that here today. So buyers were willing to come back into the Dow as well. And then the Russell really had some momentum today. We're getting closer. We closed towards the top. You can kind of see here, we've got a little bit of, short-term intraday resistance that's kind of formed here. That's not a huge level of resistance, at least in my opinion. That these tops are what we're really looking for. But kind of keep an eye on that. If we can push through that resistance, I really wouldn't be surprised at all if we're able to get back and test that major level that's looming not too far away. So we haven't broken out of anything. But as we've talked about before, it's really important if you're interested in potentially playing the breakout in the market, now is the time to get looking for some opportunities. If you like small cap companies, go do some scans, go through your watch list, whatever it is, find some potential small cap companies to play if we do in fact break in the Russell. If you like the bigger, more mid cap companies, kind of do the same thing. So we can prepare, right? We have no way of knowing if and when we're going to break resistance, but we can be darn good and ready for action if and when it does happen, right? So, if that is something you're looking at, be prepared. Don't let a breakout pass you by without being the one to choose to sit it out. It's fine to choose to sit it out. It's not fine to not be prepared, right? So shifting gears into our sectors, once again, XLB continues to be as predictable as ever as our range continues to shrink, but we continue to pop off of both of these trend lines. Saw some pretty good upward movement. Did see some selling once we hit our intraday highs, closed about halfway through the candle. So not a ton of conviction on the buyer's side, but certainly buyers are coming back still off of that trend line. Energy continues to kind of slowly work its way back to its support. We're getting awfully close. We're not quite there yet. Certainly haven't seen any turnaround or confirmation candle, but that support's going to hold, but we're getting pretty close. So again, much like our breakouts, if we are interested in playing something in the energy sector, if we do get some confirmation off of that support, now is the time to start, going through that side of your watch list as well. So hopefully that can kind of help you be better prepared, whatever is going to be happening. Financial, I was able to hold off of its support. Pretty strong day, closed above the 200-day moving average. Other than that big gap, late last week, financial has been pretty nice lately. So I'm not terribly surprised that once buyers started to come back in, they had a little bit of oomph to them. Still not the prettiest chart, like we talked about, right after that gap down. We're kind of right back to where we started. We have to try to break out again within the financial sector. Industrials did bounce back. This is my least favorite looking sector personally right now. I hate that we, failed at resistance. I hate that we broke support. Now we have, another level of support in the form of yesterday's low. If you kind of project ahead, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I always want to be thinking ahead. If we ultimately end up fizzling here, now maybe we run right back up to resistance and are talking about a potential breakout, right? That can be one outcome here. But maybe we run up for another day or two and then start fizzling out. If we break that support level, then we're going to have seen us fail at resistance and make consecutive lower lows and lower highs, right? Again, I don't know that that's going to happen, but I can always be thinking, I don't like that. That would not be something I'd be bullish on if that were to happen. That is for sure. So kind of keep an eye. I think that support level is going to be important for us as we move forward. Hopefully it doesn't have to test for any of you bulls out there, but certainly something I am keeping a close eye on personally right now. Technology sector, again, pretty strong day. In the NASDAQ, pretty strong day in our tech sector as well. We're going to be challenging some resistance in a few things. So remember, that's hard. That's hard to do, but we like it. That means we got there, right? That means we got to resistance. So our staples, after the pullback we've been watching for, we did see some upward movement. We were able to get a confirmation candle, a close above the previous swing high. For me, a close above the 200-day moving average as well. So it looks like we have established our new swing level of support, and at least according to the trend, should be starting to work our way back up, right? I don't know the future, but that certainly is a good confirmation candle, in my opinion, for the staple sector. So liking the way that's looking personally right now. Our utilities continue to fight at resistance. They don't want to give up, but they don't want to break through. Eventually we'll get tired of saying that, or they'll give up or break through. We'll see which one happens first. But right now, really, we're continuing to really consolidate at the upper end of that trading range. I could see this guy going either way, to be honest with you. I still don't have a read on the utility sector personally. So we'll kind of have to monitor that. Another strong day in healthcare following the last couple of dojis. Buyers moving right back into that strong sector as they have been prone to do this last little while. Kind of have this previous swing high, and that's our only resistance until we get back into our big high back here at a major level of resistance. So while I'm not overly concerned about this little swing level of resistance, I'd be looking at it. If that breaks, that would lead me to think, things are still really good in the world of the healthcare sector. So another strong day for another strong sector. Our discretionary sector taking another crack at that resistance as well. Buyers did step back in, kind of close right below that resistance point. So we are still showing pretty solid strength, but have yet to break through any resistance just yet within the discretionary sector. And then real estate, much like our staples, we were able to get a confirmation candle. Yesterday we had that doji on the pullback. Today we were able to see that upward movement, take out yesterday's high or that intraday resistance and close above it. So much like the staple sector, kind of a pullback, textbook type of bull pullback situation in the real estate sector as well. Definitely don't dislike the way the real estate sector or the staple sector are looking, because I like that type of a pattern. That's for sure. So that's where we find ourselves in our sectors. Really, pretty solid day all around, right? Nothing really too dramatic happening if you're a bear, that's for sure. We do have our inventory reports tomorrow. So if you are trading true, make sure you're staying on top of that. We're really starting to kind of trust that floor, right? That we've kind of been building these last few days, this previous swing low. We're really, continuing to test that and bounce off of that. We're looking pretty sideways in the short term, as you can kind of see here. Obviously, we don't know how, the inventory report's going to impact this, but we all know that it can. It can push us through the support. If it's negative, it can get us maybe working back towards resistance and that 70 if we're positive. So we want to be keeping an eye on that for sure if we're trading crude, because that certainly can move that market. Natural gas continued its overall positive momentum. Natural gas is really interesting because sometimes it just gets going and it's like a bull in a china shop. It just keeps running and going and going, and your brain tells you that's got to cool off, and yet it keeps going and going and going. So very hot sector, very hot commodity right now. That's for sure with natural gas. The dollar remains strong, more upward movement within the dollar following that recent breakout. So more and more buyers are willing to trust that breakout as something real, and understandably so. With our metals, we had our big breaks of those intraday floor or those short-term floors, over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Yesterday, the bottom really fell out. We closed just a little bit below 12. Now we're kind of hanging right around 12 here today. A lot of indecision. Not terribly unexpected. As we've talked, that 12, it really is, that 1200 really is a support level from a longer term point of view. I think, as I'm looking at a chart that looks like this, I'm thinking really one of two things if I'm potentially looking for a bearish opportunity. But one, and probably for my tastes, this is what I would prefer. I would like it to build another little floor around 12 here. The one thing that I never really liked about the floor of the last few weeks is I knew that 12 was right below us, and that wasn't a ton of room between the breaking of the floor to that. Now there was definitely money to be made, but I didn't really like it all that much because there wasn't a lot of room. Now, as we looked yesterday, we don't really have a lot of support till we get into the 1130s or thereabout. So ideally, I would like to see maybe a little bit of sideways action, build another little bit of a floor before breaking that. And that's probably, when I see a pattern that looks like this, not specifically referring to this one time on gold, but more from a general point of view, I like to see it build that floor, then break. And so that's one thing that I can be watching for. The other thing will be watching for is the rally back into that old floor as a potential bearish retracement. If we run back into that old floor, see if that wants to act as resistance, and can look at that as a potential entry point as well. Like I said, the room in this one particular case is something I don't really like. But again, that's just me, and you don't have to agree with that. You don't have to agree with anything I say. But that's kind of what I'm going to be watching for, on the gold and silver. Very similar situation with silver. I prefer to follow gold versus silver personally, but that's a preference thing. So that will be what I'm watching for. But whether, it takes another day or two or a week or two, now we, know that 12 is putting up a fight, right? So, think about how that could impact it technically. If buyers are willing to buy off of 12, that makes perfect sense. I'm not one of them, but I get it. I understand why they do it. But I do know if I were to be one of them, I'd have the stop loss not too far below 12. And if this thing does break below that, that would certainly trigger my stop loss, putting more bearish pressure. And I'm just one guy, but I can't believe that I'm the only one that would be thinking that. So keep an eye on that as we move forward. Let's just take a quick peek here at silver. Very similar. We could kind of apply the same general type of analysis to silver that we applied to gold. So keep an eye on how we develop. Do we run back and test that old floor of resistance? Do we consolidate and try to build a new floor? Maybe that's the floor. Hey, if 12 created a bounce, it wouldn't be terribly shocking because, again, we saw on gold when we looked at it yesterday, we saw that there's a lot of support, historically at 12. So I'm not one of them, but I'm not going to be surprised if that's enough to tempt some of the gold bugs to get back in. So, and if that does, great for them. Right? I got no problem with that at all. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we find ourselves after a pretty strong day in the market. Like I said, a couple things to watch for tomorrow will be the retail report as well as the inventories report for crude oil. Those will definitely be things we want to keep an eye on because they can impact our overall trade, especially if we're in the retail or the crude markets. So keep an eye on that. With that, I suppose that will do us for this today's version of the market recap. As always, it is certainly my pleasure, and I do appreciate everybody's time. If you haven't already, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel? Click that notification bell so you can be alerted anytime we have a new video, whether it's a live stream, a halftime report, a definition video, a how-to tutorial. We've always got more videos right around the corner, and we love to share them with you. If you enjoyed the market recap, it is always helpful and appreciated if you do give it a thumbs up to let us know that we're on the right track. So thank you in advance for that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, happy trading, and I will see you in the next one.